Well, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another, we'll just say a show that is probably everyone is very anticipated to get into because there's so much going on. So much going on. It's a lot of people are stressed out, and why wouldn't you be? With everything that's happening in, the old coup that's going down and everything else. Well, I was going to do a show yesterday, but I didn't know that all this stuff was going to be playing out so soon. And then I just realized as I was, putting this show together, I said, maybe I should take a pause here, sit back and see if any of this connects to what's going on right now in Russia. And, there's a lot. There's a lot. I'm sure by now you're probably aware of everything that's happening with, the Ocean Gate thing. We know that we've heard about the terrible loss that just happened, and we know that this is kind of going to be an issue. An issue for a lot of lawsuits that are going to go down, right? Well, there's more to this story. There's more to the story. There's so many things that connect here that it's almost, I'm really beginning to question whether or not we're living in a reality or with whether this really is a simulation, because the movie is about to get really, really interesting, people. What we're about to watch for the next, I'll say about maybe an hour, it could be a little longer, the show today, because I have so many things to connect to that, I think that you're going to be pretty encouraged by the end of it. I think so. And it's kind of hard because we got so many things coming at us so quickly right now that it's hard to tell what's real, what's not real. They call it the operations of psychology, otherwise known as the old psyops. And it seems like there's a lot of it. Is it? Or are these just strange coincidences that are just happening again and again and again, spelling out something that is like literally biblical? Like literally biblical. Let's just take a look, for example, because there's that word right now that we're hearing a lot of, implosion. Implosion. I'm at the gym and I'm working out and I'm just thinking, man, I can't get this word implosion out of my head. And then I look at it and I'm like, well, let's break it down for a second. And I say, ooh, that looks like I'm plowing Zion. Yeah. Well, the world in the book of Micah, this is one of the minor prophets in chapter 3. God talks about how he's plowing Zion. And it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. But let's get into the operations of psychology, shall we? Because I think that this is going to blow your mind. I really do. I know. I even saw today, this morning. I already had the show loaded. Donut's already on this stuff too. He covered some of the things that I actually may cover as well. He just did a really cool show on this too. And right before I came on here, of course, Marfugel and Dex, they're giving the blow-by-blow of what's happening in Russia. These are all channels you should check out. Willing Witness is like going viral. We're going to talk about all of this today. Let's start with this. Okay, let's start with the Submersible. Right? Now, the irony is a lot of people were up in arms, of course, over the fact that everybody was making such a big deal over the rich, as opposed to all the people that have been passing away trying to get to this country on boats that are stuffed to the hilt. And more. Well, who cares, right? Nobody really cares unless they have billions of dollars. And these people, some of them, they did. Some of them had some very interesting ties, too. And, of course, you know me with the names. I had a bunch of people email me when this first came out. They're like, have you looked at the names? And I'm like, that's the first thing I did. That's the first thing I did. Wow. And it just gets weirder and weirder. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you may have heard of, maybe haven't heard of. I'm going to add a layer to this that I know you haven't. It's about The Simpsons. Okay? Now, the Simpsons writer, Mike Reiss, he wrote that sub, okay? And he talked about that. That was interesting. But his last episode, and I shared this on Twitter as well. I wrote Coinky Dinky Doo. Simpson Tide was originally an episode it was supposed to be the end of the 7th season, but they ended up putting it into the 9th system, the 9th season. And it's about Homer taking over a sub. Treason ironically being exposed. That's on the 21st. What's today? We didn't hear about treason until just a little while ago. Isn't that interesting? And it had to do with the Soviet Union kind of still being in charge and looking like they're falling apart, but they ain't falling apart. They ain't falling apart. That's what the episode was about. There was a pinhole leak, and of course the sub, it sank. Now, what's weird is, of course, that Simpsons writer Mike Reiss, not a showrunner. I mean, he was a showrunner back then. I guess he was one of the top guys. He wrote that episode. That was like his last episode. Now, I know that there were other episodes about Homer being stuck in a sub and it having to do with a lot of weird stuff. It gets weirder, people. It gets weirder because the more we look into this story, the more we look into why on earth were we being told about this submersible? You think that the whole world's going to be upset over, a bunch of gabillionaires that were, as a lot of people are saying, how silly do you have to be? You're getting on a ship that supposedly, can't even, doesn't even have a bathroom, right? You can't really see anything. They got these little monitors controlled by remote control. It's comical how funny this is. But there's so much symbolism to it. The name, the Ocean Gate. That Ocean Gate's the name of the company. The fact that it was called the Titan. Titan, there's another name for Titan, and it goes by the name Leviathan or Behemoth. Another name for the great whale or the great fish that swallowed Jonah. Ironically, there's some people that think that whale, that great fish, wasn't a whale, by the way, it was a great fish. And it's symbolic of it's symbolic of carnality swallowing up Christ, is what it is. But if you want to look at it from like a UFO type of a picture, we're going to get into that too, because some people believe this. But how strange that the wife's CEO, the guy who is in charge of this whole thing, and thank you so much for the super chat. I'm having a problem right now seeing the live chat. If you're here, I welcome all of you. History, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Everyone who hits the like button, it is a huge help, and it notifies people and everything else and gets everybody here. And it is just such a super blessing, and I'm grateful to you. Thank you for the super chats. If I miss you, email me, jacobisri1111 at yahoo.com. All the links to everything, by the way, in the description of the video below. If you're new, welcome. I talk about a lot of goofy things. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, it's going to seem silly at first, but the more we get into it, it's going to become very real. This show's going to be very real to you. So, of course, we have David, the Child of Wrath, who joins the board of directors. So we got people that represent the whole secret society things. Some people say these are the people that are destroying the world and everything else. So, connected to the board, that's strange. You know what else is strange is the fact that the CEO's wife, her great-great-granddaughter, she was the great-great-granddaughter of a couple that died on the Titanic. People called the Titanic hell, and there's a picture of it right there. Hell. Hey, do you know that that Jonah prayed, literally, this is true, you could look it up, all right? Challenge me. Out of the belly of hell. Prayed to God. He says, out of the belly of hell I prayed. Out of the belly of hell. Here we go. Interesting. So you're starting to see how the Jonah story starts to come alive. It's going to get more strange. It's going to get strange. And I think that, there's a couple of ways of looking at this. One way, not so good for the world. One way, not so good for the world. My hope today is to appeal to your sense of maybe we should pray. And, if you pray, maybe something good will come out of this. Appeal to your sense of, I don't know, hoping for something greater than just the whole world going kaboom. Because that's not fun. That's not what God has planned for us, believe me. But it doesn't mean that he's going to leave the world wholly unpunished for being as corrupt as we are. So you start to look at this, how passengers compared this ship to hell, Jonah swallowed by the great fish, hell, and the fact that, listen to this, supposedly the Federal Reserve, had something to do with the sinking of that ship, the Titanic. Of course, that word Titan can't be missed. Titans, old mythology, they were kind of like rebelled, and they were sealed up in the depths, in the depths. But I'm not going to focus too much on that because I think that it's, really, I'm sharing this stuff off the bat because it's going to be like, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's cool. Wait till you get to why I'm doing this show. I just got to lay the groundwork, so stick with me because there's a lot of weird things. So this guy, I don't know who he is on Twitter. I found this video that he shared, interesting. So I went, if the banks go down next, right? I said, especially with the Titanic news, well, that would seem a bit ritualistic. How about you? I said, hey, at Community Notes, you know, that's, if you want to see if something's true, if you go at Community Notes, they'll tell you everything. It's a source of truth today. Well, very strange is that on, 6/8, Ocean Gate on June 1st, which, by the way, you know, is a very symbolic date, okay? So on June 1st, they tweeted out that they're connected to the internet in the middle of the ocean. Thank you, Sean Ray. I appreciate that super chat. We got like 1,200 people watching already. This is great. Thank you for hitting the like. Thank you for doing all you do, people. Yeah, so connected to Starlink. And, of course, Elon retweeted that on the 8th. You'll see atop. But then 6 days earlier, he tweets out, let that sink in. I'm not saying he predicted something sinking, but it's weird and strange and cool to talk about. If this is all planned, maybe he would know. Maybe he's in on it, right? Maybe he knows the inside scoop of what's happening with all this stuff. That's why I put him on the thumbnail there, because it's almost like somehow he's always a little bit connected to these things. So we're going to hope and we're going to pray that the Lord is going to do the right thing. The right thing by the people that are wrong and the right thing by the people that are trying to be right. Because all of us are just meatheads. We're all a bunch of meatballs walking around, trying to bumping into stuff or being, having the world come in on us and crush us. That's what implosion, by the way, is. It's when the outward kind of crushes into the inward. The outward crushing into the inward. Symbolically, that's like a good thing. And it's also connected to, believe it or not, Christ, which is also connected to this sub, which is also connected to a dream that I had about a sub exactly 1 month before this thing goes missing. Very strange. But before we get there, let's take a look at this Titanic-bound submersible. Catastrophic. It was a catastrophic implosion. The Navy detected this ahead of time. Now, they went out there on Father's Day, by the way. Okay, so there's a lot of symbolism there, and there was a lot of stuff going on spiritually around that time that it just made me think of that word implosion in a new way. Now, you see that quote from Micah, that's chapter 3, verse 12, where it says, therefore shall Zion for your sake shall be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become as heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. Now, what does this mean? What does this have to do with anything? Well, implosion, I'm plowing Zion. That's how I got there. And then as I read on, and as I was looking more into Micah, and of course into Jonah, I realized something interesting. Very interesting. So the Ocean Gate advisor accused the government of their bureaucracy for holding up the investigation. Give me 1 second. Hang on a second. I got to grab something. I almost forgot to sound the alarm when I got here. We're gonna do some sounding the shofar today. Isn't that fun? Those are the days. Yeah, so they held up the investigation. They knew. Now, why did they know? Why did they know and not say anything? Because, of course, there was a lot of other news that was being released. But if you got everybody thinking, of these 5 people, very symbolic number 5, the 5 wounds of Christ. Think about that. A lot of 5, a lot of symbolism in all these occult circles. 5 is a huge thing. David, gathered, he had 5 smooth stones. He only took 1 to take down Goliath. Only took 1 smooth stone to do that. That's Christ, of course. 5 wounds of Christ. It's our senses, in my opinion. What we see, what we touch, what we taste, because that gets us trapped into the natural. Makes us put our faith on the outside, on the shell. The shell, which, by the way, right now is slowly but surely coming in on us. It's about crushing us. That's what happens. Remember I told you about the harvests? The barley harvest first. Then there's the wheat harvest. I said we were in the wheat harvest. Well, we're going into the grape harvest. That's where the grapes are crushed. That's like a can underwater. Implosion. Very strange. You know what stranger is? There were a bunch of weird sounds that were going on. They heard banging again and again and again. And of course, we thought that the banging could be them. I actually, myself, I even tweeted something out. I was kind of like, I put a prayer out there. I was like, Lord, wouldn't it be great? Because I saw it as symbolic. I didn't want to see these people die. I really didn't. Not because I think they're so great or anything else. I don't know anything about them. In fact, if I did look into their lives and everything else, I might say maybe I don't like them too much. But it was more like, because I know when things happen in the world, there's a reason for it. Symbolically, it's trying to tell us something, and we need to learn from it. So, and what I was learning, I wasn't liking. But after we realized that they had been totally crushed and everything else, I think that the message became more and more clear. It's on. It's happening now. But these banging sounds, then the question becomes, well, who's banging? Right? Who's banging? Who's banging? If it was imploded right away, where's the banging coming from? Of course, some people are saying it's probably aliens. Right? Didn't we just do a couple of shows about aliens? Hasn't that been all the talk, haven't I said that, that would be like the next thing? Recommended at barbecues. On my last show, I told you, don't talk to people about aliens and stuff. It's not, I don't recommend it. But it's like all over the news. You can't get away from the aliens. And you're going to see how all this is going to tie into this, issue that's going on in Russia, I think, in a roundabout way. Very strange. Well, there's this new report that claims the U.S. is hiding technology and reverse engineering it. That's going on right now. You know what else is happening? Remember that guy, Avi, that professor from Harvard? Avi Loeb, I think is his name. He is all about scouring the ocean for aliens. Have you seen those videos? Those videos where you'll see an alien pop up, or like a craft, or like they're being chased and then dives into the water. You've seen them. I don't know if they're real, but you've seen them. Yes, underwater UFOs are a thing, and there's a bizarre history to that. Do you tell me in a live chat? Tell me in a live chat if you think that somehow this could be connected to the aliens. What else do you have on your bingo card? We've had so many things. I didn't see a submersible being crushed, but I did have a dream about a ship that was loaded with cadmium. I even went to Twitter and I asked her, anybody know what cadmium is? I had no idea what cadmium was. I thought it was like a nuclear sub, and I thought it was going to go, and I said something that it was like, I think it's headed to the Bay Area in the dream. I thought maybe it was going to be some kind of a bad thing. I did. It is a bad thing. I don't know if it's connected. In a second, we're going to look at it. Because if it wasn't for that dream, I wouldn't have been able to understand a lot of the other things that I'm going to share with you, which I think is so interesting. So that's why you should pay attention to your dreams. I know it sounds goofy, sounds weird, but a third of the Bible has to do with dreams and visions and all sorts of other things. Did you know that all of the people that are on that ship somehow connected to biblical figures? Do you know the guy everybody's talking about? His name's Hamish or Hamish. His last name is Harding. Do you know what Hamish means? This is why I didn't want to see people die. It's Jacob. Yeah, it's the equivalent of Jacob. Harding is tough guy, like a strong man. So of course I see that name and I look it up. I'm like, oh Lord, what are you trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell me that I'm about to be crushed? Are you trying to tell me I'm about to be crushed? This way, it's what happens to the grapes. You get crushed, you get squeezed, for that new wine, because God is doing a new thing. Well, his son turns out maybe not the most, most appropriate in these situations where your father is missing for good, and seems, and you're like, I'm going to go to the Blink-182 concert. Now, what's weird? What's weird about Blink-182? Why is this an issue? What does this have to do with anything that you're talking about? Well, the lead guy from Blink, Tom DeLonge, Blink-182, he's an alien guy. It's all about aliens. So I see he's going to Blink-182. I'm like, oh, they're going to start with the whole alien hype now. Or there's going to be some kind of a alien thing that's going to stop, the nuclear war. Something. I don't know if that's going to happen, people. But I do find it strange that, here your dad is, just trapped, and what a nightmare, right? In hell, trapped in hell. And you're going to go to a concert, and you're going to tweet about it, and you're going to tell everybody that this is what dad would want, because I was a big fan of the band, and music's how I cope, he said. He also, I guess, follows this. In the middle, you see a girl. I cut off her butt because she was showing her butt with a string up it or something to get everybody. And then it says, can I, sit on you? Which I'm sure is not appropriate. But Brian, Hamish's son, said, yes, please. Very strange. Very strange. What's stranger still is the fact that video went viral, and she's got like a devil with horns, the Baphomet, whatever you want to call it, on her left arm. You know who else? Was wearing a shirt just like that? James Cameron, Mr. Titanic himself. Eddie shared this with me. Eddie was so upset. Eddie's like, James Cameron interview regarding the media sitting, here we go, sit again, on Implosion. Can I sit on you? There's it's just a weird connection, too. I think when I hear of that, I think of when you're a bigger person and you're wrestling with somebody, you take advantage and you get on top and you sit on them. I'm going to show you who's boss. Elon Musk calls out the walrus. We'll probably talk about that too, because why not? More things to distract us from the bigger picture, which is what God is trying to say. I'm about to plow Zion. I'm about to plow it. When you plow a field, you break it up. It's not a great thing. Jacob in Scripture, he comes before all the plowing. There's a passage that says that he helps to break up that earth for, the planting of a new crop. But when they come to plow it's at that harvest time. It's harvest time. So anyway, Eddie was upset, but I noticed what it was on his shirt. There you go. Devil horns. And guess what else? Go figure. James Cameron. How many times did he visit that Titanic wreck? 33 times. That's the spooky number, right? 33. Do I have the picture of, let me see if I can find that picture of Biden and Damar Hamlin. Remember Hard Hands? Wow. The 33. Everywhere you go, you see 33. Guess who died at 33? 33.5. That's right. That would be Christ. And all this is, believe it or not, it's all connected to Christ. You're going to see. It's just gets a little stressful the more you look at this. All right, I don't think I have the picture, so I'm going to move on. But 33 is a big thing. We see it everywhere, right? Damar Hamlin, number 3. And that picture of him and Biden, where they're holding up the 33. 33. Hey, low budget, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. We got like 1,700 people watching. This is great. Thank you all for coming and hanging out with me. Well, so the stepson of Hamish, which means Jacob, which is, kind of a bummer. And you have, Titanic. He also did a couple of other movies too. One of his movies, I believe, had to do with the abyss and maybe aliens that are found there too. Strange, right? He just did Avatar, The Way of the Water. Here we are in the water. It's an interesting time to be alive. More aliens, stuff, all this stuff. It's strange, but it's not as strange as this. Okay, yeah. So if this just blew my mind that I created that little thing with the two of them wrestling, because it really just seems like a bromance, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Yeah. So the big thing, I woke up in the morning yesterday, or I think it was yesterday. Who knows? Everything's running into everything today. Who knows? Time is just kind of bleeding. One day leads into another. These traumatic events are coming at us in such a quick, terrible way that it's hard to even know what to believe anymore, But while all of this stuff is happening and Russia's about to, start the greatest threat that we've ever seen to the old nuclear war, which is what is on everybody's lips right now, you have Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, two titans. That's what they are, right? They're going to fight each other in a squared circle, and it's a cage match. That's what they were thinking. Musk is like, yeah, let's do it in a cage. It was very funny. Everybody was putting up stats, who's like this, who's like that. Musk, he was on a video interview where he talked about the walrus move, where you kind of just lay on somebody and just kind of like, you use your weight to your advantage or whatever. Not saying that he's overweight. I think the guy's like 6'2", maybe like 200 pounds. I'm 205. I'm 6 feet. I think I to be honest, I would beat the hell out of both of them if we if we want to get egos involved. But I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I don't see the point. But Derek, willing witness, who by the way now is like a phenom on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it. He's like approaching 70,000, Twitter followers and everything else. He had a viral video that like reached millions of people, changed the game. He just did a Spaces with, of all people, James O'Keefe. Isn't that interesting? Gonna do good things. We got to do good things. We're all so happy for you, Derek. But he put out this little tweet: "Give them bread and circuses until they never revolt." Yeah, interesting. Keep us occupied, right? Keep us interested. Very strange. A lot of things are happening today, people. A lot of things that are happening. It's a lot of it's to kind of keep our eyes in one direction as opposed to looking where we should be looking. It's misdirection. It's witchcraft. It's MAGA. I actually wanted to put the name MAGA on Homer Simpson's hat in the thumbnail. I thought that would have been cool because a lot of this is like we're under a spell. I was telling Danielle this yesterday. I caught wind of what was happening and I was like, I can't because there has to be a connection to this. I have to find something. Like I was up late last night praying. This is what I do. I was sounding this. Hey, you know what? We'll do it. We're going to do it. We're going to sound it. All right, I'm getting a little better. When I'm alone, I do it great. So I was sounding the shofar. I was praying. I was doing like, flipping through the Bible. Well, tell me something, Lord. And it was great because I had already loaded a show. Hey, Wayne, thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, you're here on time, brother. Glad that everybody made it live. It's awesome to see everybody in the live chat. And leave comments below, too, on what you think about all this stuff. But I was already doing a show of on the worm that we're going to talk about in a second. The worm, which is Christ in Scripture, calls himself a worm. It's in Psalms, as well as Jacob is called a worm. Fear not, a worm, Jacob. Worm. Done shows on the significance of this worm, which is a little bit different in Scripture than you think. One of them translates from the word into like maggot. The other one translates into the specific worm, which is called the scarlet worm or the crimson worm. This, my friends, is incredibly significant now that we have the Ocean Gate scenario and then we have you're going to see. But let's talk about how if they be corrupt, corruption is going to be revealed, because all of this distraction has kept us from a lot of interesting things. Now, I want you to take a look at that man right there below, if they be corrupt. That's Adam Schiff. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner of that screen, you'll see the word Schiff is a surname meaning ship. Ship. Adam, mankind, we've been talking about He-Man, Adam, the Masters of the Universe. Thank you, Nomad. I will check my my mail. He says Blink 182 is a huge clue. Yes. Wait till I get to the end of the show too. I will check my email. Thank you for that. Censured. Adam Schiff is being censured. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but what a censure is, basically there's like, we're going to bring you before Congress and we're going to basically tell you how much we think you stink. We're going to show our disapproval in a very harsh way. We're going to use naughty language too, which is what some people did. And of course, he just was smug and happy the whole time. As JJ says, the Schiff went down. That is true. Thank you, Jennifer R., for the super chat. Wow, this is the plot thickens here. So Adam Schiff, mankind, the ship of mankind, which I've been talking about, the ship's going down, right? Remember Nova Scotia? The fires? Remember the ship that was on the U-Haul truck? Titled, "The Ship is Going Down"? It was a symbol of something happening. That's probably why I was dreaming of ships. But to get into that dream, it's going to freak me out. But Adam's ship right now in the world, the ship that Adam is sailing in, that would be our life, our egotistical life, our whatever, the shell of who we think we are, but we are spirit, right? With God, we're more than just this physical body. The wounds of Christ, the 5 wounds, we're more than our senses. Most people are trapped down here in hell, but it's all going to come crushing in on us, I'm telling you. So the media ran a bunch of cover for this, but if you look at it symbolically and spiritually, right now God is saying, I disapprove of the way the world is with man. I disapprove with how they are handling themselves. At the same time that we're being force-fed all of this information about OceanGate. OceanGate sounds a lot like, any of the other gates that we've, scandals. Doesn't it sound like that? OceanGate, doesn't that sound like a scandal already? As opposed to a portal, which some people have really interesting. I think Donut has a cool idea about the portals, and so you should check out his show on that. Thank you, Sonia McRae. I appreciate that. Super chat. You all are being very generous today. I appreciate you all. Okay, so Hunter Biden, this information that I've talked about a lot, this is going to be a serious scandal. It's going to be a Huntergate. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Let's take a look at this over here. Okay. Basically, the National Security Council coordinator walked out because the questions involving Biden and China and other things, they got really hot. But then other people were tweeting out that, hey, none of this is going to go anywhere with Merrick Garland. Here's Hunter and Merrick Garland attending the same state dinner. A lot of people, when I gave you the news on Twitter and elsewhere. If you're not following me on Twitter, it's JacobIsrael71, at JacobIsrael71 on Twitter. Find me there. When I gave that news out, a lot of people were like, oh, he won't face anything. Oh, it's a slap on the wrist. And I said, once you admit to a little, that opens the dam for more. I told you today was going to be the day where corruption was going to be revealed. And I'm telling you, and I'm praying and I'm hoping that it's going to be. That the people that are doing harm are the ones that are going to be held accountable. And we're not just going to be held accountable because we're just fodder, which is what a lot of people think is going to happen. But I think of Jonah's story, and you're going to see why as I continue to break this down for you. Because it's worse than you think with this Hunter. So the whistleblower from the IRS said, that he has evidence the DOJ not only gave like preferential treatment, but they basically did everything to avoid interest in this investigation. And if you look, those are videos that I did years ago. God has spoken, a corrupt ruler will be replaced. And if you look 2 years ago, that's before everything went down, before we even heard of the laptop. I had a weird dream about a laptop. And since then, you know, if you go back and you look in my, from a dream that I had in 2015 on my website, there's an essay about that. And also to the right, where you see Biden looking clueless, a video that I did a couple of years ago about Russia being this terrible threat and not to trust in the shadow of Egypt, meaning that we're not going to be able to count on our allies and everything else. Especially now, if this, we'll say, coup turns out to be something that maybe NATO forces were involved with. I don't know, because this guy is not a good guy, by the way. That's him up in the top right-hand corner. He's serving Putin. He was a crook. He robbed people, you know, women, choked them out, stole their stuff, went to jail for 10 years, came out, started a restaurant, became like a restaurateur, started off with, you know, girls taking off their clothes to get people in. People say he's connected to the Russian mob. I don't know. Food was so good, everybody said that they got rid of them, and then it became like the place, like the mayor would come in, and this was when a young guy named Vladimir Putin would start to come in. They became kind of friends, and he cooked for world leaders and everything else. This guy's been in the mix for a long time. Until one day, he said, why don't you do me a favor, just let me have an army. I'll go and I'll fight the battles that, you know, you can't do politically. I'll make a mercenary army. And he went in and got a lot of prisoners out of prison to come fight. People were like, you're one of us, because he was a prisoner too. He wasn't a great guy. So now he's fighting for the common man. So the story goes, supposedly. Or is he fighting for a lot of money that was given to him? I don't know. We don't know. Or is it all a ruse to begin with, to make it look like Russia's weak, and then kind of like the sucker punch comes? I don't know. I don't have any of the answers. And I don't know why I put an alien behind him, but I think that the aliens, maybe if things get out of control, that would be like the next thing that they say is going to happen. And then they'd be like, the aliens are here. You can't come out of the house. But good news is, you know, the world's still here. Nuclear war has been avoided. But we got to do what the aliens say. I don't know. Remember, I'm a writer, people. Merely speculation, all of this stuff. But here's why I really was concerned about Russia. You know, I talk about the bears a lot, right? And I came across a couple of days ago the season 2 of The Bear, which is a great show. And I said, wow, that's interesting. You know, people are making a big deal out of The Bear again. And then, I don't know why, the Wordle puzzle for yesterday or the day before was making its rounds. Like, I thought everybody stopped playing, but I guess people were still playing the game. And that the answer for that puzzle was taste, if you were wondering. And I thought, oh, we're going to get a taste of the bear. We're going to get a taste of the bear. We're going to get a taste. Being a key word, a taste. You know? Not like the full meal. We're not going to be completely consumed. Just a taste, just a nibble. Just a nibble. Weird, right? Well, weirder still is this uprising that seemed to come out of nowhere. And now everybody's saying the words implosion. Like Russia is slowly imploding. Strange, because that would be exactly what happened to that sub. Stranger still, that sub that seemed to be predicted once again by The Simpsons. Stranger than that, if you look at the actual synopsis of that show, after Homer gives a mistake when trying to return to the harbor, he's basically on a Russian ship. This is what happens. At this point of the story, an enemy submarine approaches the D0WN. He joined the Navy for this episode, and he's on this ship, and by accident, he shot like the captain of the ship out like a missile. So now he's like the captain. Very strange. Gets stranger. And, well, the other sub fires back, creating like a pinhole in the submarine, which is a big deal. The D0WN ends up in Russian waters and is interpreted by the United States of, like treason. Weird, right? like they're defecting. They're teaming with the enemy. And then what happens at the end? He has this pinhole in the sub, and he fixes it with an earring that he took from Bart. This is the research that I do. This is why your support means a lot, because who else is going to look into this stuff? He stopped it. He comes up to the top of the waters, and guess what he sees out there? He sees China out there. He sees the Vikings out there, because the Vikings would be very symbolic of, we see a lot of that stuff going around right now. And that Russia has always been in charge, that it's all been a ruse. That Russia, it looked like they were failing, that the Soviet Union was falling apart and everything else, but it was all a big show. And I go, that's weird, because right now it looks like they're imploding. I wonder if it's all some kind of a big show. I don't know. But what I do know is that in regards to the submarine, there's so much symbolism, it cannot be under-addressed. Now, the Suleiman family, the Dawoods, and a lot of people noticed that, of course, he was a member of the Economic Forum of the World. Interesting. There was a lot of fake news going around about, that he was going to release information. People get so silly. But he was a Bay Area. He's from the Bay Area. This is big news. Bay Area was like all over the news. Bay Area. I got to point that out. You'll see why in a second. Well, he's a Pakistani father and a son. And the son was terrified. He didn't want to go. He was so scared. Poor kid, right? But it was Father's Day, and he wanted to make his dad happy. Isn't that interesting? So it's like, he sacrificed himself for his dad. Like literally. Interesting story. More interesting is what all their names mean. I told you what Hamish means. Supplanter. The name Jacob gets a bad rap. Just so you know. But it is strange that this guy's name is, the same as me. Now, where it gets weirder is Dawood is David in Islam. So you have a picture of King David, okay? King David. And then you have Shazdadah, which means the king's son or prince. His son's name, Suleiman, means Solomon. David's son was Solomon, and he was a prince until he became the king. Weirder is what you're about to see in a second. But before we go there, I want to talk about the owner and CEO, Stockton Rush. And we talked a lot about the tree stump, right? Nebuchadnezzar becomes like a tree stump. We talked about that tree stump a lot. Being cut down to I'm going to cut down this tree, and maybe perhaps the tree can grow again. That's what Stockton means. And Stockton, rush, means one who dwells in rushes. And that is a plant that thrives by the water. For example, Moses, when his mom could no longer hide him, she got a papyrus basket. That would be a basket made of rushes. A ship. Then placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. A ship. Very wild. Isn't that right, Wendy? Don't you think that's strange? Thank you for the super chat. Wild. Gets wilder. Because if we take a look at the name Titan to begin with, other names for it, behemoth, mammoth, whale, Leviathan. This is what swallowed Jonah. And as I said earlier in the show, there are some people that think that because they watch the Ancient Aliens franchise, that this guy Giorgio, he's a famous dude. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Tsoukalos, maybe, claims that Jonah was swallowed not by a whale, it was a fish, or even a big fish, if he wanted to get the detail right, which he should, but by an unidentified submersible. And there's like, to the left of it, if you want to just take a quick look at how this thing was made. Weird. 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 But it gets weirder. And let me tell you why. Because of the dream I had. Okay, this is where the show gets a little woo-woo. But man, is this interesting. So on the bottom, if you look on the bottom of the screen, you'll see the bottom left. It says on May 19th. Now, I had a dream on the 18th. So May 19th was the morning or whenever I posted this. Dreamed last night about a ship whose nose, was packed with cadmium. Thinking it was headed toward a bay area. I have no clue what cadmium is. This morning I found it's connected to reactors. Anyone know what cadmium is? Dreams usually are personal and spiritual in nature, by the way. I don't know what cadmium is. I had no idea what cadmium was. A couple of people told me it's connected to submarines, of all things. I didn't even think about it at the time. I also didn't think about the fact that I used the word nose to describe it, because in the dream it was like I thought it was like a Russian sub or something, to be honest. That's what I thought. But I didn't want to say anything because I know how people get, and I don't want to get people scared. So I just said a ship whose nose was filled with cadmium. I didn't know what cadmium was. I asked ChatGPT, and cadmium is used in deep sea exploration, is commonly used in batteries that power underwater vehicles and equipment. Cadmium is used extensively by the U.S. Navy in construction of submarines and ships. Thank you very much, Orange Peacock, for the super chat. Yes, so the Bay Area member, Bay Area, right? This is weird. Cadmium connected to a submarine. This is weird. It gets weirder. It gets weirder because cadmium is a color too. I didn't make this connection until yesterday. That's how it got me to Jonah. This is how it all ties together to splat, implosion. This is something. It was very, like I said, I was up praying and interceding. Oh, Lord. Like I've created in my head, and I'm hoping that there's another outcome. Like my outcome would be, Isabella, you tell me if, thank you for the super chat. You tell me if this is a little far out there. I'm not making any predictions, but it's like the outcome I'd like to see is this whole thing it's quashed. Maybe instead of retaliation of rockets and war, what we have is document dumps, like stuff that they were holding for the last minute so that it would create unrest in a country. I'm hoping that maybe the truth is somehow spilled and instead of there being some kind of catastrophic war, which I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on it. I do kind of feel like that could happen, but I'm not sold on it. I'm hoping something good could come out of this. I'm praying that. I feel a little bit like Lot. Not Lot, Abraham praying for Lot. I'm like, could you, would you, should you? If you remember the story of Jonah, and we've been talking about this, because we just talked about the Queen of the South, the people of Nineveh rise up with this generation. People in Nineveh would literally be here at the judgment right now. Nineveh, Jonah, it's connected. The story of Jonah goes, the people, they get a taste of the bear. They get a taste of destruction, and they repent. Because Jonah said, look, if you don't get your act together now, I can't hold back what God is going to do. I'm saying that to you now. I think maybe together with prayer, and we're like, maybe I'll live my life for more. Maybe you can help me. You can, instead of seeing, terrible destruction, we see terrible destruction of corruption. So I have this dream thinking that this thing could start some kind of a terrible, war or something. Like, God forbid there's some attack and it's from some kind of a nuclear sub. But cadmium isn't anything nuclear, but it is used in submarines. Carrie says she hopes the wrist is better. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I've been editing a lot more, and it's back. I'm back to the gym. I had shots and everything. Thank you I hope it gets better too. So I'm just taking care of it. I'm wearing the brace so that I give it a chance to rest. I'll be fine. If I could just get to sleep and stop working and worrying so much and worrying. Yeah, right? I'm like, fear not, little worm Jacob. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. Fear not, thou worm Jacob, you men of Israel. I will help you, says the Lord. I'm your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Now, this is really the part of the show that I'm most excited about. Solomon's Shamir. Okay, so what you're looking at is something from Wikipedia. And a couple of people are talking about this too. Donut, like I said, they were talking about this as well. I'm going to cover a different aspect of it because I just found it strange that they look so similar, but also that they were spiritually significant and tied together. So this worm that if you look to the right-hand side, it says the worm that built Solomon's temple. The worm that built Solomon's temple. It was this mythical worm that supposedly could eat through stone, but other things too, metal, everything else. So it could devour things, and it was used to build the temple of God. Supposedly it disappeared when the last temple was destroyed, but here we see collectively now more and more people are mentioning this. It is appearing again. Which tells me what? Well, we're going to see that other literal temple being built, but the temple that's being built right now is us. The worm that built Solomon's temple, you worm Jacob, the worm that is Christ. The temple is built by the worm. I find that incredibly strange, especially since I have the dream of cadmium. And I'm like, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's connected to electronics and submersibles and plating, and it has to do with submarines. And I had this dream exactly 1 month from when it, disappears on Father's Day, where I'm like, it's headed towards the Bay Area, and then Bay Area is all over the news. Very interesting. The name Solomon is there. And the craft looks like the worm. It could disintegrate stone, iron, and diamond. Solomon is said to have used it in the building of the first one. Sometimes when you're building something holy, it hurts, It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. But do you know that Jonah's story has a worm as well? Jonah's story has a worm as well. God actually prepared a worm to smite the gourd that was basically Jonah's shelter. Okay? Now, this is not great news when you think about it, because the story of Solomon goes, and let me put this in perspective because it's all connected. Cadmium is connected. This worm is connected. It's very heavy. It's very heavy. So you got to really, in the live chat, try to just pay attention to me just for a sec as I'm going through this, because there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. Cadmium is also a color, okay? Cadmium is also known as scarlet. Scarlet. I didn't know that. The woman, the Queen of the South. We've been talking about the woman dressed in scarlet. Scarlet, which is the robe that Christ wore. Scarlet, which is another name for cadmium. Weird. Gets weirder still. So I dreamed last night about a ship whose nose was packed with cadmium. Think it was heading towards the Bay Area. No idea. And of course, debris has been found and they know, right? So there's this worm called the crimson worm, which looks like Solomon's shamir, by the way. It's a worm. It's also known as the shield louse. Now, what this worm does, my name's Jacob, so this is kind of funny because Elon's name means oak tree. I don't know if you know this. I think so. Tell me, you got to tell me in the live chat. Somebody told me this, but I found it interesting because Jacob, worm Jacob, the worm attaches itself to an oak tree. And if you've been watching the show long enough, you know that I talk about Elon a lot. And you know that he definitely watches and he acknowledges that he watches, but he just won't come out and say it. Why won't you say it? Come on, Elon. With what's going on today, shout the channel out so people can find the truth. And of course, I don't have those answers, so you got to go to God. You got to go within. You got to be imploded. Got to look within. Stop looking without for the answers. But cadmium, the crimson worm is a picture of the cross, and there you have a picture of its shell. And then what happens is, so there's this worm, and it attaches to an oak tree. Looks a lot like the sub. Attaches to the oak tree to have kids. And once it attaches to that oak tree, it creates a hard shell right around it, a husk, a gourd, if you will. This is how it's connected to Jonah, you're going to see. And inside of that shield, inside of that shell, it has all of its babies, all of its children, symbolic of Christ dying for all of us, symbolic of us laying down our lives for all of our children, if you will. It attaches itself to the oak tree. Oak is also symbolic of God, of you dying for what you know to be true in the world to save others. There's no greater love that person has than to lay down their life for a friend. So cadmium, scarlet, that's the color made from this worm. Weird because scarlet is everywhere right now. Okay. Corinne Jean-Pierre just referred to herself as a historic figure. People made fun of that. I said to myself, well, that's pretty interesting because if you think about it, she really is a historic figure, and she probably will go down as a historic figure if you think about this. Well, to the right of her underneath, that's Doja Cat. She has announced her Scarlet tour. Scarlet being her alter ego. Scarlet. Corinne dressed in scarlet. And then, of course, Pokemon, that's in the news. Scarlet and Violet. You know who's Violet? Grimace. It's weird because Grimace, purple and cat, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. It's very interesting. The Prince of Wales in scarlet. And then Elijah King talks Scarlet Knights. Scarlet. Christ. Crimson. Cadmium. This worm. So this worm attaches itself to this tree. It has its babies. Now, as the babies grow up, what happens is the babies, they start to eat. And they nourish themselves on the mother. The mother literally gives up its life for its children, knows it's going to do it. Just like Christ knew he was going to go to the cross, he knew. He knew what he had to do. Some people have an idea of what might happen. In my book, I have the lead character, Thomas, had an idea of what he thought might happen. God forbid. We don't want to see negative things happen to anybody. But once it attaches itself, it's not coming off. Once you're attached to the oak tree, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. And it lays down its life. And then what happens is its tail, crawls itself up to its nose, and it like implodes. Boom. Isn't that interesting? And it creates a heart shape. A heart shape from all the dye that's released, all of the this residue, which stains the oak tree forever and is on the heads of the children forever. Symbolically, this is huge. Symbolically, this is incredible to me. Symbolically, this is incredible because it is the story of Christ literally playing out. Now, God prepared a worm. God prepared a worm, the worm that built Solomon's temple, a new temple on the horizon. Jonah praying from the belly of hell, and there being a worm attached to Jonah. So the story goes, so Jonah didn't want to tell Nineveh, look, like I don't want to tell you guys and gals and whoever you are, because I love you all. Thank you for coming. Hit the like, subscribe, share with your friends. Go to God, pray, ask for more, ask for the truth. That's all I care about. I don't want to say bad stuff. I don't want to. I've literally tempered my words over the years. I've realized the power of words are an important thing. So when I say that right now we're at a moment where I don't know what's going to happen, I see what I want to see. I personally am not that scared for myself and my family. If we got to pack up and go, I know that God's with me. I can't say the same for the world. I'm hoping something else is going to happen. But what happens is Jonah goes to Nineveh. Remember, the people in Nineveh rise up in the judgment. Okay? Nineveh, which means the children of Baal. Ninus, the child of Baal. So it would be the dwelling place of those that worship Baal. That's the system. That's that devil, horn-looking thing that both of them are wearing. Children of Baal. He goes to this place and he tells them, look, you don't get your act together 3 days' time, this is it. Okay? Because after 3 days and 3 nights, how long did it take before we heard heads or tails of what happened with them? Where this thing crushed in on itself. About 3 days, 3 nights. That's some timing, right? Some timing, how all this stuff seems to connect. And what ends up happening is he goes and he tells the king and everybody else, they get together and they repent. They put on sackcloth. It would be like the equivalent of you tasted the bear, you taste the news right now and you see, we better get our lives together. I had a guy at the gym ask me, what should I do? I'm like, I don't know, you're a good guy. Maybe you should just spend some time praying. Maybe from here on out, you're like, I'm going to do good things in the world because you understand that these things that we do to others, they come back on us. There's repercussions for what we do. We reap what we sow. Thank you very much, Hops. You use an Ergo mouse. Thank you very much. Gave me a tip for my. I actually edit everything on my phone lately, and so that's my problem. I got to get back to. I got to get an Ergo mouse, too. So Jonah tells everybody. Guess what happens? The king declares, everybody needs to do the right thing now. We got to get this country back to God. Sounds like in this country, sort of happening a little bit, maybe. Seems like, we're making steps towards maybe more morality. I can't tell you that. I don't know. It just seems like there's a shift, a change in the tides. By the way, that episode was Simpson Tide, basically like Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide. I didn't even put that together. Crimson, same thing. Scarlet, same thing. Crimson Tide. This is just blowing my mind. I wasn't prepared for that revelation. But yeah, that episode was called Simpson Tide based on Crimson Tide. See how it all connects? Very strange. So everybody repents and God repents. Then Jonah, he gets upset. He's like, I told everybody something was going to happen and I said they better. Now I lost all credibility. He doesn't say, hey, you all did the right thing. The Lord's blessed you. And he's thankful that there's no terrible, bad stuff happening. He's upset. He's like, I knew you were going to repent of this. I knew you weren't going to destroy the world. I know that you're a loving God, a caring God. I knew this. Why did you make me come here and do this? Why am I wasting all of my time and energy when I know you're not going to punish anybody? That's what Jonah said. Be a goofball, right? What ends up happening is that he kind of goes up on a hill and this gourd grows above him. A gourd kind of looked like a gourd. You know what it looks like? It would look a little bit like that worm. Some translations call it a leafy plant, but I like gourd because it reminds me of the outward shell. And that gourd offered Jonah kind of protection from the shade and a little bit of comfort. It was like my house, right? Your house where you live. food in your belly, a little bit of temporary relief. You know, you're up there on a hill and you're like, this is it. I can't believe this. I can't believe it. You know, I can't believe it. They're going to mess up anyway. And they do. They return to their vomit and Nineveh is ultimately destroyed. But at this moment in time, Jonah's on the hill and there's this gourd. And then God, let me read this to you, because this is where I want to close the show, because I think that there is a good message in this. I really do. I hope there is, but I could be wrong. I don't know. You got to tell me in the comment section to let me know. So, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. And he prayed unto the Lord, and he said, I pray you, Lord, was not this my saying when I was yet in my country? Before you made me come here, basically. Therefore I fled before unto Tarshish, because I knew you're gracious, merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and I know you repent of doing evil. Let me read that again. O Lord, I know that you are gracious and merciful and slow to anger and of great kindness and repentance thee of the evil. Therefore, O Lord, take, I beseech thee, my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. For then the Lord said, are you doing well to be angry? So Jonah went out of the city. He sat on the east side of the city, and then he made a booth. Now, a booth is a tabernacle. Just so you know, that's what they would do during high holy days. And he sat in its shadow that he might see what would become of the city. And the Lord prepared a gourd and made it come up over Jonah, that he might be in the shadow over his head, to deliver him from his grief. Jonah was having a hard time, so God's like, let me give him a little comfort. And Jonah was exceedingly glad of the gourd. But God prepared a worm. When the morning rose the next day, it smote the gourd and it withered. That's literally what happened. Implosion. I'm plowing Zion. A little bit of comfort. God prepared this worm to get rid of the gourd, to take away the things that were helping us to be happy and joyful. I'm going to take away your joy. I'm going to take away your comfort. It's strange that God would do that, right? Well, not if you see the bigger picture. And it came to pass when the sun did rise, God then prepared an east wind. And the sun beat down on Jonah's head that he fainted and he wished to die. And he said, it's better for me to die than to live. Last time he said that too. Things got worse. Yeah, it's very funny how God works. And then God said to Jonah, are you well to be angry for the gourd? Some people say the world is the gourd. The earth is the gourd. Could be a picture of this gourd being our waking natural life that God prepares a worm to destroy, so we don't put our faith in what makes us happy, but the people that God spared. Because a lot of people really, they're making jokes, they're sending around memes of people eating popcorn while they're watching this, and it's scary. Are you good to be angry, even unto death? Then said the Lord, you have had pity on the gourd for which you didn't labor, neither made it grow when it came up by the night, and it perished in the night. Should I not spare Nineveh, the great city, wherein are more than 60,000 persons that can't discern between their right hand and their left hand, and also much cattle? God is saying today, I feel, I could be wrong, maybe he's not going to destroy and just kill everybody like some people are saying. Maybe he's just going to destroy the gourd so that we can remember, to put our faith where it needs to be. I think God understands that people today, they don't know their left hand from their right. How could they? Those that were entrusted with his children, all of us, the people that are in charge, the titans, well, they're about to be crushed, aren't they? So, my prayer is that good comes out of this. I hope that is yours too. I hope that you do spend some time praying, interceding, asking God for answers, directing our steps. We may think we know which way to go. I would like to say to all of you, I don't see, terrible nuclear war happening, but I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not a future teller. But I do know that Jonah's story came through very clear to me. Very clear to me. And what I took out of it, maybe you can take out of it too. Maybe you remember that he cares about people that are even dumb. They don't know any better. Cares so much because he's a gracious God, and he's a merciful God, and he's slow to anger, and he's great in kindness. And he repents even of the things that maybe he was about to do because of maybe you. Because maybe you said, Lord, if you spare the world, you know what? I'm going to serve you. I'm going to be better to my children. I'm going to be better to my family. I'm going to be moral. I'm going to be upright. I'm going to do the hard thing because it's the right thing. I'm not going to take the easy way out. I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to share love and not hate. These are the things that we need to do. Have faith, though. I don't want you to be stressed out about this. Let me be stressed. Let me take the burden of that. All right? I'll take the burden of that. So far, so good. It's working. I love each and every one of you. Will you please do me a favor? And will you share the video around? Will you make sure you're subscribed? Will you tell your friends about the channel? I'm going to go back to doing my regular produced shows again, but I really felt like a live stream would be something that was important for this. Especially, I'm glad I did because it continued to evolve. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten all this stuff. How interesting. How interesting that I had a dream about cadmium in the nose of a ship heading toward the Bay Area. Submarines made of cadmium. Cadmium is also scarlet, which is also crimson tide. It's Jonah's story. God is gracious. God is merciful. God is slow to anger. And he repents of the evil if we repent of our evil. That's all we got to do. All right. I love each and every one of you. I hope this made a difference. I hope that you have the best day ever. Now I'm going to go hang with the Dan and the rest of the fam because school's out for summer, baby. School's out for summer. So Dan, she's free. Got a couple of months to just hang out with me. And man, is it going to be good. Hug your spouse. Hug your children. I don't care if they're too big or too old and even smelly. Hug them. Tell them you love them. Tell them you love them. I love each and every one of you. I'm going to give you all a big hug. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for